So today I want to talk about science. I want to talk about science a little bit here. I've been reading this book called The Locals by Thom Powell. So Thom Powell was on the one of the shows I've been sharing a lot recently with David Paulides. So this is the book that he mentioned in there. I've been reading this one a lot. I'm about halfway through it. So I got a few things in here I want to talk about that goes along with my research. So I'm going to talk about science a little bit here. I bring science into this a lot, technology. I try to bring a lot of technology into this. Also spiritual stuff, things like that. A lot of this paranormal, a lot of this is all combined. So ever since I started doing my research here, I started trying to bring science into this with footprints, measurements, collecting hair samples, and learning how to check them myself and look at them myself with two different microscopes. Collecting water samples, things like that. So I try to bring a lot of science into this, and also using technology. Some of the apps I've been showing some of the apps that I'm using. The Flight Radar 24, where you can see the planes that are flying around. The Sky View Light, where it shows you all the different stars and planets and things like that. So it kind of help you know what's out there moving around. So if you see something moving and you don't think it's an airplane, you can look at these couple of apps, try to help figure out what you're seeing. And then there's other apps too that I've shown in the past. The tone generator app, things like that, trying to do experiments. Alright, so let's get on to this. Alright, so I want to talk about how, first here I want to talk about the Bigfoot phenomenon. It's not taken seriously by a lot of people, by most people. It's not really taken seriously because the scientists don't endorse it or don't come out and say, yeah, this is real. But I want to talk about that too. So I got some notes here I'm going to be going through a little bit here. But alright, so let's go here. So scientists in general will not look into the Bigfoot phenomenon because they cannot afford to ruin their careers. A lot of these scientists that are being paid by the government are working for universities, labs, things like this. So they can't go on record and say, yeah, Bigfoot's real, or this is real proof, this DNA test was real. They can't go on record and saying stuff like that, or they get their lives ruined. Alright, so there has been a few scientists, Dr. Grover Krantz. He was an anthropologist, so he did a lot of Bigfoot research, Dr. Grover Krantz. And Dr. John Bender-Nagel. I wanted to make sure I brought his name up too, because he's done a lot of research. There's some videos out there by him that I've watched in the past. So Dr. John Bender-Nagel, he was also a doctor, a scientist. Alright, and then you have Dr. Jeff Meldrum. He's a scientist that worked for a university. And I know he's passed away here recently. But in this book I've got to a part where they talk about where they found an impression where they set up a bait, a bunch of fruit and stuff out in the middle of this big muddy area. and the Bigfoot, instead of like walking into it and leaving footprints, he laid down, and they got a real good impression of his torso, his arm, his hand, and they made a cast of it, and they took it to Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and this is talking about it in the book here. It's pretty good, pretty interesting. That's one of the best casts that they've ever made. That wasn't a footprint cast, but it shows the hairs. They've been able to study the hairs and determine that it's not made from elk. There's nothing like elk hair. So this is a pretty interesting book. So like I said, they brought Dr. Jeff Meldrum into that as well. So he's another scientist that has been doing Bigfoot stuff too, and actually done a lot for. He's done a lot for the Bigfoot community. So science is a process or a method. It's not an institution. So you don't want to rely on. We can't rely on like certain scientists to come out and say this is a real. Because science is actually a method that they're using. So it's a way of attacking a question by experimentation so that an irrefutable answer is achieved. Alright, so quantum physics is much the same way here. So with quantum physics, a hypothesis is made, then experiments are done to prove the hypothesis or to disprove it. Alright, so once it's so if you're a quantum physicist and you're doing an experiment to see if you're right about your hypothesis, and your experiment works out, and you publish a paper on it and everything, and get it out there in front of the other quantum physicists. So this is what I've found. This is a real. So then the other quantum physicists, they'll do experiments on it to try to prove it wrong. So there's been a lot of this in the past where one physicist will discover something, he'll publish it, put it out there, and another physicist comes along and he's like, I don't believe this. I don't think this is right. So he'll do an experiment to try to prove it's wrong, and sometimes they end up proving the other person's right, just because they're trying to do an experiment to prove them wrong. And then if it's a real true experiment and or a real true hypothesis, then the other physicists will prove them wrong or prove them right. Alright, so this is how they came about determining that there was other dimensions by doing this. So there's other dimensions. They figure there's at least 11 dimensions, maybe more, maybe infinity. But anyway, there's what I wanted to bring into here. This is the third dimension that we're in. So we're in the third dimension. So we can see the third dimension. We can see the second dimension. We can see the first dimension. There's a lot of videos on this too on YouTube. You can go look at too, and it'll that explains all this. Alright, so from what I'm understanding, the same thing happens if we were in the fifth dimension. We would be able to see the fourth dimension. We would be able to see the fifth dimension, the fourth, the third, the second, the first. So that's what I believe is happening here too with this. I believe that what we're seeing, a lot of times what we're seeing, they're changing their vibration. They can shift into different dimensions, and they can see in the different dimensions. So if they're in the fifth dimension, they can see in the fourth and the third. And a lot of times we cannot see them with our eyes. They can be right there next to us, right around us. We can't see them. And then occasionally they might like pop into our dimension where we can see them. But with them being in another dimension, if like a fifth dimension or fourth dimension, we can't see them. They can be right there by us, and they can see us because they can see into the third dimension. And I believe this is why we're catching them on the cameras a lot. Every camera can catch these things. Every camera. I've caught them on all of mine, including the drone camera. So you can catch these things. I think it's because it has to do with the light. With the thermal cameras, it has to do with heat. So if they're in another dimension, they can see into our dimension. They can come and go in our dimension because they can change their vibrations. Alright, so let me read you this right here too. And I've seen this before. The 6 steps of the scientific method. So number 1, identify specific questions related to the problem at hand. Alright, number 2, propose an answer to one of these questions in the form of a educated guess. Number 3, formulate a hypothesis stating the educated guess in such a way that it can be tested. Number 4, predict the outcome of the test in the event that the hypothesis is correct. So number 5, test the hypothesis by analysis or experimentation to see if the hypothesis is correct. So number 6, reject or revise the hypothesis if the experiment does not support it. Alright, so that's the scientific method, or the process. Alright, so every experiment that is truly scientific does not require a design that precisely adheres to these 6 steps. It may incorporate these steps into a single avenue of inquiry, but the principles implied by these steps are always identifiable. Alright, so I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I just want to go through some of this and get this out here into my video. Alright, so one of the things here with the science is Thom here saying that of all the evidence that is not anecdotal, footprint evidence may be the best of all. Footprints are the namesake of these creatures in the U.S., but the plaster castings made from them are of debatable scientific value. A track cast is the proper term for plaster forms made from the footprint impressions. Alright, here's the part that I found really interesting too. So, talking about paranormal things, paranormal stuff, these things could be right beside you and you can't see them. Since I'm talking about things like that, I want to read you this. The Clackamas Indians, a branch of the Chinook, maintain that in the lands of the headwaters of the Clackamas River, adolescent Bigfoot beings have to pass a test to become an adult members of the Bigfoot tribe. So they must jump in front of a human on a trail and wave their hands in front of the human's face without being seen. Alright, so that right there tells you that they can cloak. They can cloak, or they can be in a different dimension where you can't see them. So that's a rite of passage there for some of the Bigfoots and the, at least believed by these Indians. And this is something that's from the Native Americans from a long time ago. So that says that they must jump in front of a human on a trail, wave their hands in front of the human's face without being seen. So see, they could be right here next to us when we're out there in the woods. We can't see them. But then I catch them on camera. I catch them on camera really close to us watching us. And there's a part here too where it talks about the feeling of being watched. So quite a few of us get that when we're out here. We've been out here researching for so much like this. You get that feeling of being watched. And I like to refer this back to the Vietnam soldiers. They learned that too. They learned to get those feelings. If they were being watched by a sniper, they would get the feelings they were being watched. A lot of Vietnam soldiers had reported that happening to them. That they got to where they could feel they were being watched. And I've experienced this a lot out here too in the woods, being watched, and even being able to pinpoint where it's coming from. Alright, so also this is a part here too where it's talking about infrasound. So infrasound has been studied. There's even a part of the military that's studying that and using some of it. Billy Carson has a couple of his videos in the past here within the last year or so where he's showing actually some of the military testing this big thing that puts out a big vibration of frequencies, infrasound, to hit people and make them leave, make them move away, so that they're testing that. The military has that now. They can have a crowd of people or soldiers, and if they're in a war with other soldiers, they can set that machine up and aim it towards them, and they can make them sick and mess up their minds with that by hitting them with that infrasound, make them sick and bad feelings and stuff, and make them leave, make them move out of the area. So this is really something that's real. The military has that, and Billy Carson's been showing it. He's got clips of the military testing it. So this is also something that science has discovered, and with the animals, elephants use it. They use it to communicate, and they've found that the elephants can use it up to 10 miles to communicate with each other. They know that giraffes use it. They know that tigers use it. They found that tigers can actually paralyze their prey with the infrasound before killing them. So there's quite a few animals that actually use it. Okay, so right here it's saying the animals that use it are elephants, giraffes, okapi, I don't know what those are, rhinos, tigers, lions. Talking about how the tigers use it to temporarily paralyze their prey. He talks here about one guy that was completely physically unable to raise his arm when he was carrying a camera when he was being hit with it. Ron Moorhead, he's been reported a similar experience. So NASA and others have documented that certain frequencies of infrasound, and they're saying between the 8 to 70 hertz range. So I've been using the 68 hertz in experiments, the audio frequency. So they're saying here between 8 hertz and 70 hertz range can cause blurred vision in humans. Infrasound has been demonstrated to cause a host of other reactions in humans, which are paralleled in Bigfoot encounters: hair standing on end, terrified, uneasiness, oppressive feeling, dizziness, sensations of fear, increased muscle tension, very strong sense of presence as if one was intruding, disturbing something, a strange chill to the atmosphere. So it affects people differently. I know people that have got sick and thrown up. Myself, it's made me feel like a bear was charging at me. Was right there in front of me charging at me. This gave me a headache for a couple hours. Things like that. He's talking about a Dr. Benson had also studied Ron and Al's their Sierra sounds, and he determined that the Sierra sounds had some infrasound in it. Okay, here's another part. Now this I found real interesting too. So the infrasound can carry over very long distances. Upwards of 10 miles is documented in elephants. So that was actually documented with the elephants, using it over 10 miles. Alright, and then this right here, it travels best at night. Talk about the infrasound. It travels best at night, and its volume is not diminished in dense vegetation. So being out there in the green swamp, because I've felt these things before watching this, and even when I was being hit with the infrasound and I could tell where it was coming from, there was a lot of vegetation between me and where it was coming from. So the vegetation does not stop the infrasound. So it travels best at night, and its volume is not diminished in dense vegetation. So I found that really interesting right there. So that's explaining some things out there too that's happening with us in our research. I'm going to stop this and then restart it. Alright, to keep that from getting too long there, I stopped it. And now restarting it again. Alright, so now I want to talk about one more thing here. So this is a part of quantum physics. It's called Occam's razor. So I want to talk about this and how, and give you a couple of examples of it too, of how it relates to normal day life. Alright, so Occam's razor is a scientific principle used to resolve confusing data and competing interpretations of that data. So Occam's razor instructs the scientists to look first and look hardest at the simplest of the several possible explanations. So Occam's razor is part of quantum physics, and it's telling the physicists to look first at the simplest and easiest of the explanations. Alright, so what I'm fixing to go over here and give you a couple of I've actually got three things here I want to share with you. So this is relating to the Occam's razor here, but this is not science. This is real day, everyday life. Alright. So my dad, when I was growing up, my dad was a heavy equipment mechanic. He was a mechanic. He could fix cars. I learned a lot from him. I do a lot of my own mechanic work on my vehicles because of him, because what I learned from him. And I'll be teaching that to my grandson as well. And I've used that too to help teach my stepson. And he's picked up on that real good too, and he does a lot of mechanic work himself. Alright, so this is I'm talking about my dad as I was growing up. He was a heavy equipment mechanic, working on the bulldozers, the graders, things like that, the excavators. He would work on a lot of that stuff for the different companies, because here in Florida we have all the different paving companies, and then we have also the mines where they use all this equipment. So I remember my dad before telling me that he would keep a 5 gallon of fuel in his truck, because he got to where he learned that when the machine operators would tell him they were broke down, and he would have to go out to that machine and check it to see what was wrong with it and fix it. So most of the time, he said most of the time it was the simplest thing, that they would run out of fuel, and then they would radio in that their machine broke down. They wasn't watching their fuel or checking their fuel. So he said that he learned to keep the 5 gallon of fuel on the vehicle, on his vehicle, his work truck. So when he went out to the call, he said most of the time it was just the operators run out of fuel. So he was telling me, he was teaching me then, because he was teaching me to always check the simplest things. Alright, so another similar situation to that, when my daughter had moved out and she was living at an apartment building, and they had some other friends that were actually living in the apartment with them. A bunch of them shared the apartment. Well, there was several times that she called me and said her car would not start. So I'd go over there to check it out. So after the first time going over there to check it out, the very first time I went, she got real lucky because the car was actually sitting in the parking lot out of gas. So her or whoever was driving it, they were lucky they got back to the apartment parking lot. They were out of gas. So I had to take her to work and then go get a gas can and get gas and then go put it in her vehicle. So that's one of the things there too that I learned. So whenever she called me after that, whenever she called me saying her vehicle would not start, I put the can of gas in my truck and then went over there to check out her vehicle. And every time it was out of gas. They got real lucky that they kept using it and then parking it back in the parking lot right there when it was on empty. They got real lucky with that. So there was one time where her radiator was leaking, and she got lucky with that too because it was actually sitting in the parking lot. They had made it back to the parking lot. So I had to go there and I had to change out the radiator and the water pump right there in the parking lot. So that was like I say, because I learned this from my dad, and also my stepfather. He was a mechanic too as well, so I learned from him too some of the stuff. So I can actually do a lot of my own mechanic work. But so that's the other thing here too. The second one, where it's the simplest thing. They were just out of gas. She was just out of gas and it wouldn't start. Alright, so I got one more example here. So this actually happened while I'm reading the book and I'm writing out these notes of what I'm going to talk about. So this happened at the exact same time. So I'm actually going to move the camera around because I want to draw something out here too and show you, kind of explaining what I'm talking about here. Alright, so I'm going to stop the camera and then I'll move it and turn it back on. Alright, so I want to show y'all something here. So my kitchen sink, I had to, years ago I redid the plumbing because I do a lot of my own plumbing work, my own electrical work. I've learned all that kind of stuff. So years ago I redid some of the plumbing, the drain to the kitchen sink, and moved the drain a little bit to a different area. So here a couple months back, part of the drain had clogged up and I had to cut part of it out. I had to find where the clog was and I ended up cutting part of the drain out, the drain line, and replaced it to get rid of the clog. So the other day while I'm sitting there reading the book here and writing out my notes, what I'm going to talk about, Lynette comes in and she's running the dishwasher, which the water goes out through the drain of the kitchen, and her and Robin, they're running the dishwasher and they're washing dishes, doing all the Christmas stuff. So she come in there to me telling me that the drain was clogged, the sink drain was clogged, and she was afraid that if she opened the dishwasher, all the water was going to pour out on the floor. So I went to look, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I had to cut part of that drain line out before and replace it. And I'm thinking, you know, it's got to be too early for that. There's no way it could be clogged up again this quick. So I'm thinking, okay, well, let's start with the simplest thing. Let's go in the kitchen and look. So I want to show you something here. So my kitchen sink. So my kitchen sink looks like this with the faucet up here. And then it's got the drains that come out below here. Well, it comes over like this and then goes down and goes down to the P-trap and then into the drain that goes into the wall. So when I come in there and looked, I discovered that this side here was clogged, but not this side. So the water over here is still draining fine. So looking at the simplest thing, this side right here was clogged, so we're able to just plunge on it a little bit and free it up. So that's my other example here, my third example of look for the simplest thing. Start at the first easiest part here, and that's the part of Occam's razor that I'm talking about. I'm using it here as common everyday things. So actually, thinking about this, I'm going to throw a fourth one in here. Alright, so I was working for somebody a couple years back. I was working for somebody, and a lady that we had been working for, she called him and told him that her light pole out front in the front yard had quit working. So we had recently done a lot of work at her house. So the guy I'm working for, he has me go over there with him. So we go over there. So he goes to start trying to figure out why her light out in the front yard won't work. So the first thing he does is go up in the attic and start trying to find the wire, and where the wires start up in the attic to go down and go down through the wall and then go outside to the underground to the light. And for some reason he's starting at the hardest part of the trying to figure it out. So he tried that. He went outside, he started taking the light pole apart, and then he finally decided, well, let's check the light bulb. The light bulb went bad. So instead of starting at the simplest, easiest part and checking the light bulb first, and then he wouldn't have had to done all that, spend a couple hours trying to trace wires down and do all that other stuff that he was trying to do. Alright, so I just want to throw that fourth one in there. So this is relating the Occam's razor to the everyday life. Alright, so that's what I'm trying to do here is relate Occam's razor from quantum physics related to everyday life. So there's very similar things that happen here daily to all of us, that always check the simplest things first. And the quantum physics, the Occam's razor tells the physicists to check the simplest, easiest things first. Alright, so that'll conclude this video. Science, quantum physics, Occam's razor. Trying to bring Occam's razor into this too, and bringing science into this. Bringing science into my research. Alright, so that'll be it for this one.